Welcome into an all-new Jock Market Power Hour for this week's John Deere Classic. I'm Rick Gaiman, that right there. Joe Idoni and Joe, not even a little family trip to the mountains will get you missing a week of the Power Hour.
You're darn right, man. Enjoying some family time, but excited to basically over the last the earlier portion of today and this afternoon and before the show here, kind of getting a grasp on the John Deere Classic field, trying to cram as much info to my head as I possibly can for the next 45 minutes. And I'm going to buy some shares, as I always do.
I love that. I love that indeed. We are playing Stock Market DFS, where all your favorite golfers and the golfers that you hate are now shares. They're stocks. And right now, for about the next 45 minutes or so, if you're watching live, you can bid on those stocks. If you are one of the high bidders, those shares are allocated to you. You can short golfers. You'll be able to trade live. There's just so many ways to get involved on the stock market side of things. And that's only half the game now, Joe.
Yeah, they have the pick'em side. I was just looking at it right before we went hot here. They have round one birdies or better, some lucrative options, especially if you think the scoring is going to be pretty low out there at Deere Run. There's make the cut odds. There's round one scoring averages. So you have the pick'em. You have obviously the IPO markets, which we're familiar with. And now they're just basically throwing away money if you do a simple retweet. So they're giving you cash in all different ways. As always, the promo code running on the bottom there is POWER if you are a new user and want a first-time deposit bonus match up to $100 cash.
Yeah, if you're not following Jock Market on Twitter and quote tweeting this tweet that they put out every Wednesday, you're missing out on like a 1 out of 20 shot for $150 or something like that. Like you're just stupid, right? Like you don't even deserve to be here, Joe, because we like the data, we like the opportunity. If you're missing that opportunity, just click the X button. You don't even have to be here anymore.
Yeah, exactly. There's a great odds. You've basically got a 1 in 20 odds to win $150. They're just handing it out there. So make sure you go over there to that tweet. You don't even have to get it right, as we've talked about before. Choose your player, win your cash, hop back in the market next week with a little extra in the portfolio.
All right. Well, let's look through this and see how this actually works. And we'll use last week as a bit of an example here. So here is last week's market, which was the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Ricky Fowler sold last Wednesday for $10 a share. He won the golf tournament. That's $25 per share of a payout. So $15 of profit. Colin Morikawa, who was in that playoff and did not win, still got the $20 per share payout. So that was $11.21 better than his IPO. Adam Hadwin went from $5.25 to $18. Taylor Moore went from $5.56 to $16. And then Lucas Glover flies up the board, $2.92 to $15 a share. So the top of the board, couple of big names, but a lot of value right below.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of notes there that is a very interesting week from this perspective, because Ricky Fowler going for an all-time high IPO, breaking through the $10 barrier, finishes obviously with the win, gets you $15 profit. Also within the top 8 in terms of profit for the week were 3 players in the $2 penny stock range.
Yeah.
As we always note, it's not really $2 because you basically get $1 back per share if they finish dead last. So you're building around $1.46 per share on those players. There's a ton of them available, as there will be this week as well. So you make a ton of ROI in those guys. Peter Kais, Lucas Glover, those type of players really did some major damage in Detroit.
Carl Yuan finished T14 and made you $6.10 per share, a 254% ROI. I can assure you there is no other market in which Carl Yuan finishing T14 returns you 254% ROI.
Absolutely. What is that? Davis Thompson there finishing 7th or 70th, earning you an ROI as well. So just a crazy week in general. I'm sorry, that was his pre-rank, but yeah, we see these kind of bounces every week, and those penny stocks are where you get the biggest bang for your buck if you can choose them right. The less volatility is up at the top, like Ricky and Colin did last week.
Davis Thompson finished T24, so still not like the greatest week of all weeks, but able to return you a nice little amount. So we turn our attention to this week, Joe. And before we get into the board and the live pricing and playing bullish or bearish, you kind of mentioned it. The John Deere Classic, it's an event that is a staple on the schedule. The birdies will be in bunches. This is usually a pretty easy golf course, and the field itself is not the strongest. So we are likely to see a lot more all-time highs tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have an elevated event for the second week in a row here, and we expect to see, some names at the top that we aren't used to seeing. Now, that doesn't mean that any of the ROIs won't continue to be there. It's all relative sort of to field strength, but definitely will be unusual seeing some pricing breaks on some of the top players that we expect to break through barriers that we've seen in the past.
Just to look back at last year real quick, JT Poston was $6.75. He won $25 per share. Bezaden Hote, $7.16 to $20. Emiliano Grillo, I'm sure we'll talk about him tonight, $4.92 to $18. Scott Stallings, Denny. We're absolutely going to spend time on Denny McCarthy. He was the number one pre-ranked golfer last year, did not win, still almost doubled your money. So that's the board from last year. Wanted to show that off, but this is kind of that final tune-up, Joe. I mean, a lot of the guys who are going overseas might already be there. They're getting ready for the Scottish. They're getting ready for the Open Championship. But the way that the guaranteed payouts, like all you have to do, it doesn't matter what your expectation is. That's what I love about this, right? Denny in a field a couple of weeks ago, his expectation might have been 20th. If you outperform that, you make money. Tonight, it might be 12th. If you outperform that, you make money, right? Like it just doesn't matter. All it is golfer expectation to golfer result.
Golfer expectation to result, you nailed it. Each player has that threshold. Over or under that is going to either earn you money or lose you a little bit of money. Looking at the course this week, you bring up a great point of a lot of guys heading overseas for the Scottish and the Open Championship. We have a great knowledge base and history here. Is there anything in particular, like stat wise, that you may be looking into that you think is maybe slightly overlooked this week at Deere Run?
Oh, overlooked. Oh, you threw me off with the overlooked because I was gonna say that the stats point to driving accuracy being strongly correlated to success, but I think that is mostly because it's not a long course and all the par fives are reachable. So the more accurate drivers generally are shorter, and those guys are not boxed out this week, which I think is interesting. But something that might be overlooked. I don't know. I mean, listen, I think that what my model says is, compared to other golf courses, strokes gained approach is not as important. However, strokes gained approach is like always more important than anything else. You know what I mean? Like it just gives you all of those opportunities. So no, I don't know. I mean, I think this is going to be a pretty fun one. And I think you're going to have to, I like the combination of like approach and putting, that high upside ability to throw darts, roll the rock, and hope you can make enough of them.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. I was going to lean on sort of like greens and regulation type stat. Just anytime you expect the scoring to be incredibly low, 20 to 25 under par, if they're able to sort of hit that mark, you got to hit a ton of greens. You got to be there at 70, 75% of greens in regulation. Give yourself enough birdie looks and hope that you have a week where you gain 3 or 4 strokes putting. And we have a lot of guys in the field this week who've seemingly been on a nice little run doing that.
All right. Well, let us jump into our game that we play, bullish or bearish, which is an opportunity to take 4 golfers and take a stance on them. We've picked them out. Here we go. We're going to start with Russell Henley. His fair value tonight, Joe, is $8.27. That's asking him to finish about 17th or better. Are you bullish or bearish on Russell Henley?
I'm actually very bullish on Russell Henley. I am probably higher than him, and I have a target price higher than him, better than anyone in the field. And that's maybe a bit surprising to some with Denny sitting up there, but 7 of the last 8, he's returned you an ROI in the jock market. He's been the best iron player, which we just spoke about, in the field over the last 5 to 6 events played, averaging over a stroke gained on approach per round over the last 20 rounds played. He hits nearly 75% of fairways. You mentioned the importance of fairway accuracy. He is one of the top guys in the field at doing so there. He's hitting a tons of green and regulation, and he's been on a decent little run rolling the rock as well. I really like Russell Henley this week, and I like his, as much as I love Denny, Rick, just the pedigree of being a multiple-time PGA Tour winner, I do think carries some weight in weeks like this. So I'm going to be bullish on someone like Russ Henley.
Yeah, if you look at the top of the board, the first like 12 guys, Russell Henley has basically all of the wins, right? I mean, Cam Young has 0. Adam Hadwin has 1. Denny has 0. I think Henley has 4, right? So it is very interesting when you talk about that pedigree. I'm with you here. Listen, this is a golfer who has mostly flown under the radar. I think if you would have asked a lot of people who finished T4 at the Masters or like what was like, I completely forgot Russell Henley finished T4 at the Masters, right? And he was in the midst of good golf then, and it hasn't stopped. And the approach plays back. We just got to get a little bit of a hot putter, and Denny finds himself on the right side of things. So yeah, I'm with you there. I'm probably gonna have a different opinion here on Chris Kirk, who is the 21st pre-ranked golfer. Joe, $6.29. It's only asking him to finish 26th or better. Are you bullish or bearish on Chris Kirk?
I'm bearish. So if you're bearish as well, we're going to be lined up here as well. But since the Honda Classic, 4 of 11 markets since the Honda Classic, he's returned you a profit. So he's been losing you money. The putter has seemingly gotten a little bit cold for him. He is always really strong around the green, but I don't put as much emphasis on that here. I mentioned that I'm really putting a heavier weight on greens in regulation. If you're missing greens here, you're going to have to chip a couple in, and the odds of that are just not very likely. He's missed 3 of his last 4 cuts that you see right there. Sort of a nice little rebound performance with the ball striking last week at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. But to me, I think that was the week to sort of be in on him and buy low. And this week, I think a repeat performance, given what we've seen out of his recent form, is rather unlikely and unpredictable. I'll be bearish.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, he gets kind of I don't want to say a ceiling approach week because he does this every now and then, but it's just such a like narrow path. Everything kind of has to align for Chris Kirk. He's either going to miss the cut or he's going to, finish inside the top 15. He doesn't do the upside as much as I would like if I'm taking on that risk. So also a bearish stance on Chris Kirk for me. I'll just tell you, I'm pretty bullish on Lucas Glover. Now I was keeping an eye on the glove last week. He goes out, he gains 5.5 strokes putting. I'm hoping that he finally figured out that long flat stick that he's using. And now he goes back to Joe, what is basically the best golf course for him. He won here in 2021. He had a T10 the start prior 2019. They didn't play this in 2020. And then a T25 in his start prior to that. So I'm in here. I'll find you his pre-rank for tonight. It is going to be, I don't think it's great, which is unfortunate. He is 35th, a $5.25 fair value, which is asking him to finish, what would that be? Like 32nd.
So yeah, I'm bullish there too. Interesting is the irons have been on fire. Look at the ball striking numbers, have just been crazy good. He obviously has the win here at this course before. Also a top 10 in 2019. They had the year layover, so a top 10 and then a year layover for the COVID year and then a first place finish here. He's been playing great. You had the tweet last week, so I think everyone was ready for Lucas Glover. Rick, even my buddy in my golf league texted me. He's in like a one and done and he's down the stretch and he's like, I saw some posts this week about Lucas Glover having a really hot putter. Should I put it? And I'm like, where'd you see it? And he screenshots me. He has no idea we even know each other. He screenshots me your tweet. So you went viral. I think everybody is bullish on the glove this week.
All right. Well, I've got my bid in on him right now, so we'll see how long it's. I still have it, but the gap is closing on the price that I'm willing to pay. And then finally, we'll round this out with Keith Mitchell, who I think this is kind of interesting, right? Because you think I was trying to look at this field from like my perspective now, but also from like 3 months ago, right? And I was looking at it through the lens of Cam Young would have been a heavy favorite 3 months ago. And I think a lot of people would have been a lot more bullish about Keith Mitchell, whether it was around, he played well at Pebble, played well at Riviera, he's in that final group at Riv. And it just like he hasn't done anything since. So I was kind of interested to see what the market was going to do with Keith Mitchell. So we'll start with you. Are you bullish or bearish here?
I'm lukewarm, I would say, on Keith Mitchell. I would say a little bit more bullish than bearish just because he's had a couple of great off the tee weeks in a row. And I know I said I'm looking at greens and regulation, but off the tee is also another one that is higher than tour average in terms of corollary stats that I pulled off your website earlier. So the driving accuracy is not there, but he is one of the longer guys in the field, hitting it like 313 on average. I like to see a couple of good performances with the putter. So top 20 at the U.S. Open is nothing that we should slight by any means. And I kind of like that he's had a little bit of breather to potentially build on that performance. I think I'm going to end up with some shares of Keith Mitchell tonight if I get a nice price on him. What about you?
Probably not, but he's the guy I'm scared of, right? I'm scared of Cam Young. I'm scared of Keith Mitchell, where it's these guys whose pedigree is pretty darn good and they might just snap off and play well. I worry that, like LACC is perfect for the way he drives it, right? He's going to be able to separate himself in a big way at LACC. I'm not sure he's going to be able to do that here. The approach play has been pretty abysmal, but I do worry that it's just like, oh, Keith Mitchell's, B- game in the weakest field of the year is good enough to do whatever, and whatever that ends up being. So I'm worried about it, but I'll be bearish on him tonight.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, we are playing stock market DFS. We've got about 30 minutes or so, 28 minutes until this IPO closes. You can get your bids in now. You can short golfers, and then once we get to 9 p.m. Eastern time and those shares are allocated, that's when live trading begins. And if you're trying to get involved for the first time, the code you're looking for there is POWER. There is a link in the description. It'll give you a $100 deposit bonus. Let me unveil the big board for you here, Joe, for the first time tonight. And to absolutely no one's surprise, Denny McCarthy is the most expensive golfer in the market. He is already at $8.25 per share. This is the currently second most expensive he's ever been, but we are only 12 cents away, and we've got 27 minutes. So Denny will snap this. Denny will be an all-time high tonight.
Yeah, unique number one pre-rank 2 years in a row at the John Deere Classic for Denny. He's my guy, this. I'm going to kind of throw it back to you. Give me I spent I feel like the last 2 years giving pro Denny takes. What's your stance on how he wins this thing this week? And do you like his odds?
All right, so let's think about this. So if he goes for 977 tonight, he's got to finish 12th or better. It's probably close to what his top 10 number is. Even-ish money, maybe a little bit of a dog. The stat profile is pretty darn good, right? He is very much a great putter. We know that, but he's shown the ability to drive it well. He has shown the ability to hit his second shots well. The courses and the fields that he has battled at are different and deeper. When you have a runner-up at Muirfield and a T7 at TPC River Highlands, hat tip, right? That's a good eclectic group of courses to find success at. And this is going to be the weakest field he's seen in a while. So I think you've got to, temper your excitement. The reason that I like to be on the show is I can just put my bid in and not get caught up in the heat of it, right? I can just say, hey, it's $9.77. That's the most I'm willing to go. But I think you just got to be willing to let go and you get to your number. Otherwise, it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been such a proponent of this guy, but it's usually always in the $5 IPO range, which,
right.
He's been averaging, and he's been returning a profit in 80% of his recent starts. But, looking more recently, his last 20 rounds played, he's averaging plus 1.9 strokes total per round. 1.5 of that 1.9 is with the putter. Now, that's not totally abnormal for someone like Denny, but also at the same stance, it's a little bit different when you're betting on that putting upside at $5 per share or at 75 or 85 to 1 on an odds board versus 16 to 1 and probably end up paying $10 a share here. I'll root for Denny, but I just don't feel like this is a week where he's probably going to have my dollars, unfortunately.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tough world.
You got to pass, man. You got to pass.
Yeah, you do. Here's a guy I'm buying. I've bet him. I'm excited about him. It's Emiliano Grillo. He is the second most expensive in the market right now, 785. He's already over his fair value, so it's not like I'm alone in this sentiment, but he's been putting a lot better, and he's always been one of the better ball strikers. I mean, Russell Henley's here. We already talked about him, 775. But the rest of the $7 range, there's some pretty interesting names lining up here, Joe. Eric Cole, Ludwig Aberg, Adam Schenk, Cam Young, all over $7. I think what we're going to get is there's going to be like 9 guys within $1.50 of each other at the top, and no one's gonna be like super crazy expensive. It'll be Denny by a hair, and then a bunch of guys right behind.
Yeah, I think Griot's the sneaky one, and you kind of nailed it. Obviously, a great finish here last year. Not only is he putting it better, like you mentioned, but the second best guy in terms of ball striking over the last 20 rounds as well. So he's putting it really well, but he's also hitting it tee to green. Off the tee and approach numbers have lined up much better than someone like McCarthy, and even better than someone like Henley recently. So I'm really bullish on Griot. I think a lot of people are as well. You mentioned a couple other names there who I like also in Ludwig and Eric Cole. I mean, Cole has just been so steady and just printing money in Jock market. 80% of his starts, he's returning you an ROI. It's just been an incredible run. Now he's going to go for a price tonight that is higher than ever. And then okay, so we're probably, 4 starts in on the super phenom that is Ludwig Aberg. Where do you stand right now? Because I think I'm rather bullish in terms of like just the sheer numbers off the tee and hitting at 311, and also, pairing that with like 63% of fairways, which guys who hit it 310 off the tee hit it 55 to 50% of fairways. Like his ability to do both of those and hit 1 to 1.5 more fairways around and still maintain that distance is so impressive. And I feel like in a weak field like this, the guy might just be able to hit the gas and go.
He might. Listen, long term, I'm buying. Like, I've seen this kid in person. It's unbelievable, right? Like, I mean, it's the real deal. He moves it. It's very, very good. The pedigree's awesome. I think there's a pretty easy case to be made to be a little bit concerned for this week. He loses 3 strokes on approach in each of his last 2, loses 3 strokes on approach in 3 of his last 6. And he doesn't putt super well. So I look at this and say, okay, I would rather this be Riviera. I would rather this be Oak Hill. I would rather this be somewhere difficult where he can separate himself off the tee. If this is a birdie fest putting contest, the guy who loses strokes putting every week and has lost 6 strokes on approach in the last 2 is going to win the birdie fest. I don't know. I love the talent, but that's a little bit scary.
Yeah, you're starting to sort of sway me on this, and I'm questioning like being rather bullish on Ludwig because when I look at the recent winners, like JT Poston puts it really well. Lucas Glover can get really well with his putting rounds. Even Michael Kim, who won it a few years ago, had an incredible week with the putter. So he's going to have to flip that this week if he wants to compete.
I hope he just barnstorms the field. Like it would be so cool. I think it'd be an awesome story. We get to talk about the Ryder Cup. I just look at that. I just remove what I know about him. I remove all, and I look at the stat profile and I say, okay, on this golf course, man, I don't know. It seems pretty tough. You can find some really interesting names right in this. I don't even want to call it a second tier. It's basically like still the first tier. I've bet Steven Yeager this week. I'm hoping that, that Sunday final round at the Rocket Mortgage where he tied the course record can kind of spur him a little bit to put 4 good rounds together. And then even in the $5 range, well, we've got Lucas Glover here, who we've already talked about, Alex Smalley, who we've talked about in recent weeks, Adam Hadwin, who played well last week. This $5 range is also pretty appealing, and it's 20 minutes to go until this IPO closes.
Yeah, Hadwin obviously coming off a great week there in Detroit. Ryan Palmer's another one that I'm relatively interested in, and I sort of have favorited right now. The second best guy in the field in terms of tee to green over the last 20 rounds. So he's been really solid there. He's kind of right there in that $5 range. And a name that I saw right under there is actually leading the field and leading Ryan Palmer first in tee to green. He has no finish worse than 33rd in his last 5 starts. it's Doug Gim. Like, the guy has just seemingly found something, really getting the ball tee to green, and is on a great run, showing elite levels of consistency that we haven't seen from him. You see the graph there is absolutely trending in the right direction. And with a weaker field like this, I do feel like this is a golf course that could set up to appeal to some of his strengths as a player.
Yeah, he's kind of back to that ball striking form of like 2 years ago. It was a pretty long slump, but Doug Gim is certainly back and playing well again. Let's continue down this board and see if we can find a little bit of value. Yeah, there's Doug Gim, 475 right now. I can refresh this in just a second, but sub $4. You know, Zach Johnson here is here at $3.25. He's going to play with Denny. He might be getting an eye on him for the Ryder Cup, Joe.
I would love it, man. If Denny actually does win this week, he's in the conversation and he's almost there on points. So I don't think he deserves to be on the team. There are big names that are just outside that will get the nod, but if he hangs a win here and then maybe plays well at the Open Championship, he may flirt with it. But yeah, ZJ getting a number, you know, this is sort of his obviously home turf where you can almost always used to be able to plug and play him. I feel like his run is kind of surpassed. So I'll probably be out on Zach Johnson. He just hasn't shown me much in about a year and a half.
Yeah, that's all. Just about a year and a half of bad play. Yeah. I agree with you. I'm trying to look further down here and see if there's any names that stand out to me. Nick Taylor is currently $2 per share. This will get a lot higher because he's the 16th pre-ranked golfer, but it does feel like, you know, he wins the Canadian Open, this all-time high moment. He gets smacked around at LACC. We haven't even seen him since then. Like, everyone just forgot that Nick Taylor even exists. There's a chance he comes out and plays really well this week.
Absolutely. If you are willing to embrace a little bit of volatility, I think that he's a good play because he's pretty much like top 10ing or missing cuts. He has obviously the win and 3 missed cuts sprinkled in there recently. So some good finishes and good history here. He's played here 5 straight years at this event, which I love to see, and 3 decent finishes sort of along the way. So definitely nothing is going to surprise him from a course setup standpoint. And someone like Nick Taylor, where was, I spoke about him earlier. Where's Michael Kim at right now? Because he's actually been trending in a really good direction. He's gaining strokes that I see in every single area across the board, off the tee, approach, around the green, and putting over the last 20 starts. So he's found something. Obviously has that win where he played incredible a few years back and seems to be trending in the right direction.
He is currently at $4.44 a share, which would ask him to finish about 38th or better. And you're right, Joe. He had the 7th at the Wells Fargo Championship, the T6 at the Charles Schwab, the 5th place in Puerto Rico earlier. I mean, this has been a much better year for him. Again, another guy who kind of went through a prolonged downturn after that victory a couple of years ago, but he's back. He's playing well, and hopefully he can rekindle some of those good vibes around this place. Let's see. Oh, I flipped this around. So we're looking at the top 10 golfers now, and the cheapest one you can get is Taylor Montgomery and Seamus Power. So Taylor Montgomery, $215 right now, which is nothing. And Seamus Power is $201. Let's assume you have to buy shares of one of these, Joe. Who would it be?
Neither of them are playing very well, but it would probably be Seamus Power for me, just based a little bit on course history. And he's put it together a couple of times at this course in particular. So that would probably be the go-to for me. And I like his, he's really cut his teeth and he's had a ton of rounds in, and he understands the ebbs and flows of a season, versus Montgomery is in one of those slumps right now that, the typical sophomore slump that they're just hard to come out of, man. We see these guys really get stuck in these ruts where they're playing really bad, and he's just getting crushed off the tee and with his iron play. Too much to make up with the putter. And we saw this coming kind of from early in the fall, that this was a little bit unsustainable for someone like Monty.
Both of them have played poorly.
Right.
But I completely agree with you that it looks like Seamus is a lot closer. He's been okay to above average off the tee. He's been good with the putter. He's just got to kind of get back to hitting those irons a little bit better. He hasn't been horrible, just hasn't been as good. So I agree that it looks like Seamus is a little bit closer there.
What about Cameron Young? Like, what's a price for Cameron Young for you where you'd be like, okay, I can ignore the form and just think that this is an absolute value steal?
I would buy it a lot of numbers. I think.
Yeah.
I think again. I'm trying to look at this and say, this guy's ceiling is unbelievable. He is getting closer. He just needs to putt. Right. He was playing even worse than this in the last couple of weeks. And 2 months ago, he would have been by far the favorite in this field. So I'm willing to go pretty high here. His fair value is 888. I'll go to 9, 14 bucks or 14th place. I'm fine with that.
I tend to agree with you. It's an opportunity in a really weak field for. So when you're playing poorly, I think that you embrace these opportunities a little bit more to sort of get yourself off the schneid. And he's kind of in that role right now. You mentioned 2-3 months ago with this field, I'd say he's probably 8-1. Like he's under 10-1 in this field and a prohibitive favorite to get the victory. He's still probably the best player in terms of talent upside, although you could maybe argue that Aberg gets there. But yeah, Cam Young is a stud, and this seems like a great week for him to get it right. And a chance, like even if he's the 4th guy on the board in terms of IPO price, that is like a buy low number for him somehow.
You got to zoom out a little bit because the last 2 months he hasn't even been the best CA Young in this field. That goes to Carson, who's been a lot better. But yeah, I agree. I'm buying the shares of Cam Young tonight. So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to refresh this real quick. We got about 13 minutes to go. Okay. This IPO is coming down the home stretch. If you haven't gotten involved yet, the code you're looking for is POWER. There's a link in the description. It'll get your $100 deposit bonus. You can get rocking and rolling. You can play stock market DFS. You can play on the props pick'em side of things. I'm looking at my shares right now. I'm about to lose my shares of Peter Quest. I do still have my shares of Lucas Glover at the moment, but I am close to losing those as I see the bids roll in. So keep an eye on that. Here we go, Joe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys between 886 and 706. This is just going to be everybody jumbled up into one spot, and who is going to finish basically top 15.
Yeah, it's just there's so much balance there, and you have the big name in Cameron Young, but between Henley, Griot, and Denny McCarthy, I think those 3 end up fighting it out at the top, and I don't think there's going to be any sort of gap or separation that's notable between those 3 guys. It's going to be close.
Is there anybody that you just like for whatever reason, like it doesn't even have to be logical, just you're just in on this week? Like mine's probably Callum Tarrant, who lost 8 strokes putting last week and has
I know I had that written down,
and he hasn't even shown all that good a play recently, but I'm like, all right, whatever, I'm in. Right, he played well here last year. He struck it well last week. He's not a very good putter in general. He might lose another 8 strokes putting, but I'm just in. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm close on Doug Gim from what I've seen. I do think I'll get a fairly decent price on him. I do have Taryn favorited here because he lost that 8-point well with the putter last week, but he did gain like over 4 strokes putting at this event last year and had a really good finish. And this was part of the run where I remember having shares quite a few weeks with the 3M Open in Detroit when Callum Tarrant was playing really well. So maybe he can sort of rekindle that. He's obviously plenty long enough off the tee. One that I considered and I was close on is like just play Svensson, but man, the approach numbers have just been really poor lately. He's losing 0.8 strokes on approach per round. That was basically his bread and butter, and he's doing it on courses where he should have a lot of 9-irons and wedges in his hand, which is absolutely his strength. So the ball striking has just gone. I can usually plug my nose and ignore a little bit of poor form, maybe the event before or but it's just been a consistently bad run with the iron play that I just think that's too much to overcome this week.
Fair enough. Yeah, I've been holding out hope for him to show some signs of life, and it just hasn't been coming. The other one, I'll tell you what, I'm in on Reavie. $5.26 right now. He's right at his fair value. I didn't even think he should have played that well. Like, I did not think last week was a good course for him. And he finished T29, led the field in approach, and lost strokes putting for the first time in like a dozen starts. I'm in. Like, go take your big hat and play out of the fairway and win this thing.
You're big at. Yeah. So looking at that profile and looking previously at Svensson's profile, those are two drastically different setups headed in opposite directions. So some really positive signs there from Reeve. Obviously having a great approach week, bad putting week. You look for that to rebound a little bit and should set up nicely in the low $5 ranges. I think that's a great bet.
Yeah. All right. So got about 9 minutes to go here. Let me refresh the board and see what we can find, Joe, and see anybody's making a move. I just don't think anybody's going to get to like, I don't think anybody's getting to double digits. Russell Henley's trying to make a little bit of a move, 885. I'm of the belief that like, so statistically, while they do it very differently, the strokes gain total numbers for Denny and Russell Henley are very, very similar. It's going to stink because one of them's going to win and one of them's going to miss the cut. And I have no idea which one it's going to be, but that's where the money will be determined. It's just like one of these top guys is going to miss the cut. Another one's going to win. I think it's very hard to figure out which one's which.
It is very hard to figure out, especially when it all basically boils down to the putter. I do like the fact that Henley, that I mentioned earlier, I think is hitting it better with his irons than Denny McCarthy. I like Denny, and he sort of said this, and I know that this hasn't necessarily proved out throughout his career because he had that amazing round at the Travelers a few weeks ago, but I like him more set up on difficult golf courses. I like Denny putting like a 10-footer for par than 12-footers for birdie, if that makes sense. So I just feel like that opens up a lot of possibilities where his short game also, which is pretty savvy, can come into play a little bit more. I think Henley may edge him out, although it's looking like it's going to be down to the wire between those two, and Griot's in there as well.
All right, I'm gonna fire off a couple of bids here if anybody wants to see how the process works. So I'm just gonna throw some bids in on Jaeger, throw some bids in on Reeve. I'm going to throw a bid in. Who else did I want over here? Well, Nick Taylor really flew up the board. All right, I'll do Callum Tarrant.
Get you some Tarrant.
Yeah.
So what's your, you got any pennies? Any penny guys?
I'll go see if I can find a penny guy or two. So hold on. What are we at on Callum? Okay. Wow. We're already at 4. Jeez. All right. We'll go. So basically you put it in, tells you what 35th or better is what you need. Throw in some on, let's go find the penny stock or two. And then we'll get you out of here, Joe. Let's go by and find Michael Kim's. I got to sort by price here. Stand by. Here we go. All right. How about, how low can I go? Kelly Craft?
It's been pretty positive for Kelly Craft in the last couple.
I would not mind Kelly Craft. This guy, William Mao, I believe.
Who's that?
He's got a couple of decent Corn Ferry starts.
Okay.
All right, watch this. So we'll do
Willie Mao.
280 on Bill Mao. I don't even know what he goes by. We'll put 20 shares there. All right, we'll see it there. I've got my bids in, so I can rock and roll. And now, Joe, you can go get your bids in, and we can check at the end and see what kind of profile we got.
All right, man. Good luck to you. We'll circle back in a few. Good luck to you guys in the chat as well. Let's close this thing down.
All right, let's rock and roll. I will take you the rest of the way here. Joe's going to go get his bids in after mine have fired up. So we've got 6 minutes or so to go. If there is a golfer that you think is priced too high, you can short them. We have done that here on the show a couple of times. I'll admit, has not always been very successful, but it just works the opposite way. So if instead of for every finishing position above, you make more money, it's every finishing position below that break-even point is you make more money. So it is an option if you think some of these guys are simply priced too high. Russell Henley, $9.01 is now the most expensive golfer in the IPO, and it is the most expensive he's been basically in 4 years. He's $9.25 at an RSM Classic a couple of years ago for Russell Henley. He might break that tonight. Denny McCarthy, $9 per share. That is the most expensive he has ever been in the jock market. No surprise there. We were waiting for that. Cam Young, $8.08. This has been obviously a rough stretch of golf for Cam Young. He's been a loser in 7 consecutive markets and 8 of his last 9. But here he is in a much weaker field, has not gotten to his fair value tonight, which is $8.96. So at $8.96, he'd have to finish 14th or better, and he's still about $1 short of that. Emiliano Grillo, Eric Cole, Ludwig Aberg are the top end of the $7 range. No surprise there. Ludwig does get a very, very good pre-rank. He's the second pre-ranked golfer, which means only Denny McCarthy is going to break ties. That's how we break ties around here. It's the pre-rank. Aberg breaks it with everybody but Denny McCarthy. Jaeger, I've already bet Jaeger. He's the fifth pre-ranked golfer. He's about 85 cents short of his IPO tonight. So at 801 for his fair value, that's asking him to finish 18th or better. I have a bid in on Steven Jaeger. So we'll see if I can hold on to that. You guys probably saw what I bid on him. I can't remember, but it was there. 706 for Adam Hadwin. Coming off a runner-up finish in which he lost in a playoff at the Rocket Mortgage. He has now turned you a profit in 2 out of 3 and in 3 out of 5. One of his better stretches as of late. Currently $7.06 per share. Scrolling down a little bit further, we spoke a little bit about Taylor Montgomery. He's $4.84 per share. Fair value 802. So 484 is asking Taylor Montgomery to finish 35th or better. This is kind of what we say. There's a price for everybody, right? Obviously, the pre-rank's not great. Probably not going to sniff his fair value, but there is a price for everybody. And Taylor Montgomery is putting that theory to the test right now. I'm going to check my holdings real quick. Okay. My Jaeger bids are still good. My Reeve bids are still good. Ooh, almost not anymore. Somebody just bid on Reeve. My Glover shares are good. My Callum Tarrant shares still good. And my William Mal shares barely good. Barely good. Here we go. Wow, look at this. Russell Henley trying to become the most expensive golfer tonight. I think that's a pretty big surprise. $9.20. He's now 20 cents more expensive than Denny McCarthy. Will there be a run on Denny in the final 3 minutes or so? We're going to find out. I mean, Joe's over there doing his thing. That might be him. Flipping this around and looking at the top 10 golfers, you can get a very cheap 6th pre-ranked golfer. That's Montgomery at 510. You can get Seamus at 610. So 610 for Seamus Power, asking him to finish about 27th or better, something he hasn't done since the AT&T Byron Nelson, which is actually also the last time he earned you a profit in the jock market. But there's still some value out there. KH Lee, we haven't talked about him, and he's coming off 4 consecutive losses. He is $2.20 short of his fair value. So a little bit of juice to squeeze out of that one for sure. The third man in that Zach Johnson, Denny McCarthy group is Matt Kuchar. Matt Kuchar is about $1.80 short of his fair value tonight. $5.35. His fair value, $7.16. Got about 2 minutes to go here. See if I can get a refresh in. We've got a couple of early closes the last couple of weeks, so you might not have a full 2 minutes left. All right, the bids are coming in at the top. Henley 932, which is probably an all-time high. It is all-time high on Russell Henley. 915 for Denny McCarthy. We were already there on him. Those two have separated themselves. It's a tier 1 of Henley McCarthy. Then you get Young, Grillo, Aberg, Cole, Hadwin, Jaeger, and Schenk all within $1 of one another right behind. That's the group that everybody's kind of going to in the next tier. Then you get a little bit of a gap to Bezaden Hope, Chris Kirk, Taylor Moore, Keith Mitchell, so on. I think we're about, is it over?
Shut her down.
I could feel that it was like about to close. All right. IPO is closed. Oh man, we'll see what bids held. And we'll see. I will be pretty surprised if Denny's not the most expensive golfer.
You know, I saw somebody, JG Funk, put this in the chat, but there were a lot of very fair prices on guys going well below their fair value. So if you're with us here tonight, maybe a little bit lighter of a market in terms of the amount of people who are in it, but I think presented some absolute opportunities for those who are with us here and able to capitalize on some shares.
All right. Give me 1 second and let me see if I have the final numbers yet. I do. All right, Joe, why don't you hit us with your portfolio for the John Deere Classic?
You got it. Russ Henley, 940. Highest price ever you mentioned. Was willing to go there. That was absolutely my mark for him, and that's what I got him for. Cameron Young, $8.30 per share. Feels like a bargain in this field. Eric Cole right under there at $7.56. Then a couple of guys in the $5 range. I got Doug Gim and Matt Kuchar right around $5.25. Michael Kim and Dylan Wu in the $4 range. And then my penny stock at $2.88. I took a flyer on Cameron Champ.
Okay, so that is, let me get this typed out here. Cannot spell Michael. There we go. Michael Kim, Dylan Wu, Cam Champ. So that is Russell Henley, Cam Young, Eric Cole, Doug Gim, Matt Kuchar, Michael Kim, Dylan Wu, Cam Champ is Joe's portfolio. Yes, sir. Well done. How about this? I've got Steven Yeager, who at $8 or excuse me, I got him at $7.19. Okay. Yeah. So I'm cool with that. I got Reavy, I got Glover, I got Tarrant, and I got Bill Mao, who I'm going to learn a lot about this week.
Bill Mao, yeah. I can't believe after all the hype you ended up with Lucas Glover, but there you are, man. Your flag has been planted, and I'm glad you got some shares to back it up.
Yeah, my flag that's right. My flag has been planted here. So we'll see if he can go out and finish. I don't know. Just give me like a 11th. I'll take an 11th and be just fine and dandy with that.
We take it around here. Yeah. And Billy Mao, I'm going to have to look up a picture of Billy Mao, and I'm going to favorite him on the PGA Tour app just to keep tabs on what he's up to this week.
I love it. All right. So we mentioned Henley and McCarthy kind of in a tier of their own, 940, 921. Cam Young kind of sits in the middle there by himself, 830. Everybody else right behind. This is where everyone just said, it was like, pick your guy, like pick who you like. I'm a Grillo guy. I'm a Yeager guy, but there's a lot of Aberg, Cole, Schenk guys out there this week. Like it's just all of them.
Yeah, like it's a fair price on Ludwig, I feel like. And if you feel like the upside is there where this guy's going to break through and punch a ticket like he did throughout his college career, that's a good price on a weak field on that guy. And then, Grillo, like you mentioned, that I thought Grillo was going to edge out Cameron Young, so I'm a bit surprised there. I thought he was going to hold a little bit tighter with those top two, but a guy who's been one of the best ball strikers in the field and a hot putter and coming off a second place here the year before, sets up great. So there are a lot of options right there in the $7 range and opportunities absolutely to make some money and run at the top of the board. Yeah.
So that 775 on Ludwig is asking him to finish 19th or better, which is a pretty darn good deal, quite honest. Yeah. Reavy at 585. We talked about him. Doug Gim, 526, talked about him, and Joe has shares of him. Let's see. Dylan Wu, we already talked about him. I'm just trying to see if there's anybody who really stands out here, Joe. This looks pretty good, I think. Nothing too egregious.
Yeah, no, nothing really sticks out. I just think overall with very fair pricing this week, a lot of guys there in the $5 and $4 range, they're essentially asking them to top 25 or top 30 this week. I think if you look at those comparatively with some of the odds at the sports books on them to do the same thing, you'll feel like you got a good bit of value this week in Jock Market.
All right. Well, listen, this is only just begun because live trading is available right now and will be through this event closing on Sunday. We'll be back next week, same time, same place for the Scottish Open. Then we're going to have the Open Championship. It's going to be a lot of fun, Joe.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you next week. Thank you, Rick, and thank you everyone here for sort of bearing with maybe a little bit of a spotty internet connection and the basement of a cabin here, but I'll be back in the home office next week, ready to get after it Wednesday night once again.
Follow Joe on Twitter at TourPicks. Go sign up for Jock Market. Use the code POWER. There's a link in the description. We will see you next time, same place. Goodbye.